Good morning. Today's Bible reading comes from Genesis 31 through 33. Jacob learned that Laban's sons were talking behind his back. Jacob had used our father's wealth to make himself rich at our father's expense. At the same time, Jacob noticed that Laban had changed toward him. He wasn't treating him the same. That's when God said to Jacob, "Go back home where you were born. I'll go with you." So Jacob sent word for Rachel and Leah to meet him out in the field, where his flocks were. He said, "I notice that your father has changed toward me. He doesn't treat me the same as before. But the God of my father hasn't changed. He is still with me. You know how hard I've worked for your father. Still, your father has cheated me over and over, changing my wages time and time again. But God never let him really hurt me. If he said, 'Your wages will consist of speckled animals,' the whole flock would start having speckled lambs and kids. And if he said, 'From now on your wages will be streaked animals,' the whole flock would have streaked ones. Over and over, God used your father's livestock to reward me. Once, while the flocks were mating, I had a dream and saw the billy goats, all of them streaked, speckled, and mottled, mounting their mates. In the dream, an angel of God called out to me, 'Jacob.' I said, 'Yes.' He said, 'Watch closely. Notice that all the goats in the flock that are mating are streaked, speckled, and mottled. I know what Laban's been doing to you. I'm the God of Bethel, where you consecrated a pillar and made a vow to me. Now be on your way, get out of this place, go home to your birthplace.' Rachel and Leah said, 'Has he treated us any better? Aren't we treated worse than outsiders? All he wanted was the money he got from selling us, and he spent all that. Any wealth that God has seen fit to return to us from our Father is justly ours and our children's. Go ahead, do what God told you.' Jacob did it. He put his children and his wives on camels and gathered all his livestock and everything he had gotten, everything acquired in Padan Haram, to go back home to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. Turn the phone off. Laban was off shearing sheep. Rachel stole her father's household gods. And Jacob had concealed his plan so well that Laban, the Aramean, had no idea what was going on. He was totally in the dark. Jacob got away with everything he had and was soon across the Euphrates, headed for the hill country of Gilead. 3 days later, Laban got the news. Jacob's run off. Laban rounded up his relatives and chased after him. 7 days later, they caught up with him in the hill country of Gilead. That night, God came to Laban, the Aramean, in a dream and said, "Be careful what you do to Jacob, whether good or bad." When Laban reached him, Jacob's tents were pitched in the Gilead mountains. Laban pitched his tents there too. "What do you mean," said Laban, "by keeping me in the dark and sneaking off, hauling my daughters off like prisoners of war? Why did you run off like a thief in the night? Why didn't you tell me? Why, I would have sent you off with a great celebration, music, timbrels, flutes. But you wouldn't permit me so much as a kiss for my daughters and grandchildren. It was a stupid thing for you to do. If I had a mind to, I could destroy you right now. But the God of your father spoke to me last night. Be careful what you do to Jacob, whether good or bad. I understand. You left because you were homesick. But why did you steal my household gods?" Jacob answered Laban, I was afraid. I thought you would take your daughters away from me by brute force. But as far as your gods are concerned, if you find that anybody here has them, that person dies. With all of us watching, look around. If you find anything here that belongs to you, take it. Jacob didn't know that Rachel had stolen the gods. Laban went through Jacob's tent, Leah's tents, and the tents of the two maids, but didn't find them. He went from Leah's tent to Rachel's, but Rachel had taken the household gods, put them inside a camel cushion, and was sitting on them. When Laban had gone through the tent, searching high and low, without finding a thing, Rachel said to her father, "Don't think I'm being disrespectful, my master, but I can't stand before you. But I'm having my period." So even though he turned the place upside down in his search, he didn't find the household gods. Now it was Jacob's turn to get angry. He lit into Laban. "So what's my crime? What wrong have I done you that you badger me like this? You've ransacked the place. Have you turned up a single thing that's yours? Let's see it. Display the evidence. Our two families can be the jury and decide between us. In the 20 years I've worked for you, ewes and she-goats never miscarried. I never feasted on the rams from your flock. I never brought you a torn carcass killed by wild animals. But that, I paid for it out of my own pocket. Actually, you made me pay whether it was my fault or not. I was out in all kinds of weather, from torrid heat to freezing cold, putting in many sleepless nights. For 20 years I've done this. I've slaved away 14 years for your two daughters, and another 6 years for your flock, and you changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not stuck with me, you would have sent me off penniless. But God saw the fix I was in, and how hard I had worked, and last night rendered his verdict." Laban defended himself. "The daughters are my daughters, the children are my children. The flock is my flock, everything you see is mine. But what can I do about my daughters, or for the children they've had? So let's settle this between us. Make a covenant. God will be the witness between us." Jacob took a stone, set it upright as a pillar. Jacob called his family around, "Get stones." They gathered stones and heaped them up, and then ate there beside the pile of stones. Laban named it in Aramaic, Yager Sahudutha, witness monument. Jacob echoed the naming in Hebrew, Galid, witness monument. Laban said, "This monument of stones will be a witness, beginning now between you and me." That's why it's called Galid, witness monument. It is also called Mishpah, watchtower, because Laban said, "God keep watch between you and me when we are out of each other's sight. If you mistreat my daughters or take other wives, when there's no one around to see you, God will see you and stand witness between us." Laban continued to Jacob, "This monument of stones and this stone pillar that I have set up as a witness that I won't cross this line to hurt you, and you won't cross this line to hurt me. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their ancestor, will keep things straight between us." Jacob promised, swearing by the fear, the God of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered his sacrifice on the mountain and worshipped, calling in all his family members to the meal. They ate and slept that night on the mountain. Laban got up early the next morning, kissed his grandchildren and his daughters, blessed them, and then set off for home. Jacob went his way. Angels of the God met him. When Jacob saw them, he said, "Oh, God's camp," and he named the place Mahanaim, campground. Then Jacob sent messengers on ahead to his brother Esau in the land of Seir and Edom. He instructed them, "Tell my master Esau this, a message from your servant Jacob. I've been staying with Laban and couldn't get away until now. I've acquired cattle and donkeys and sheep, also men and women servants. I'm telling you all this, my master, hoping for your approval." The messengers came back to Jacob and said, "We talked to your brother Esau, and he's on his way to meet you, but he has 400 men with him." Jacob was scared, very scared. Panicked, he divided his people's sheep, cattle, and camels into two camps. He thought, if Esau comes on the first camp and attacks it, the other camp has a chance to get away. And then Jacob prayed, "God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, God who told me, 'Go back to your parents' homeland and I'll treat you well.' I don't deserve all the love and loyalty you've shown me. When I left here and crossed the Jordan, I only had the clothes on my back, and now look at me, two camps. Save me, please, from the violence of my brother, my angry brother. I'm afraid he'll come and attack us all, me, the mothers, and the children. You yourself, I said, I will treat you well. I'll make your descendants like the sands of the sea, far too many to count." He slept the night there. Then he prepared a present for his brother Esau from his possessions: 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes, and 20 rams, 30 camels with their nursing young, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. He put a servant in charge of each herd and said, "Go ahead of me and keep a healthy space between each herd." Then he instructed the first one out. "When my brother Esau comes close and asks, 'Who is your master? Where are you going? Who owns these?' answer him like this: 'Your servant Jacob. They are a gift to my master Esau. He's on his way.'" He gave the same instructions to the second servant and to the third, to each in turn as they set out with their herds. "Say, your servant Jacob is on his way behind us." He thought, "I will soften him up with a succession of gifts. Then when he sees me face to face, maybe he'll be glad to welcome me." So his gifts went before him while he settled down for the night in the camp. But during the night he got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 maidservants, and his 11 children, and crossed the ford of Jabbok. He got them safely across the brook along with all his possessions. But Jacob stayed behind by himself, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he couldn't get the best of Jacob as they wrestled, he deliberately threw Jacob's hip out of joint. The man said, "Let me go. It's daybreak." Jacob said, "I'm not letting you go till you bless me." The man said, "What's your name?" He answered, "Jacob." The man said, "But no longer. Your name is no longer Jacob. From now on it's Israel, God wrestler. You've wrestled with God and you've come through." Jacob asked, "And what's your name?" The man said, "Why do you want to know my name?" And then right there and then he blessed him. Jacob named the place Peniel, God's face, because he said, "I saw God face to face and lived to tell the story." The sun came up as he left Peniel, limping because of his hip. This is why Israelites to this day don't eat the hip muscle, because Jacob's hip was thrown out of joint. Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming with his 400 men. He divided the children between Leah and Rachel and the 2 maidservants, put the maidservants out in front, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph last. He led the way, and as he approached his brother, bowed 7 times, honoring his brother. But Esau ran up and embraced him, held him tight and kissed him, and they both wept. Then Esau looked around and saw the women and children. "And who are these with you?" Jacob said, "The children that God saw fit to bless me with." Then the maidservants came up Maid servants came up with their children and bowed. Then Leah and her children also bowing. And finally Joseph and Rachel came up and bowed to Esau. Esau then asked, "What was the meaning of all these herds that I met? I was hoping that they would pave the way for my master to welcome me." Esau said, "Oh, brother, I have plenty of everything. Keep what is yours for yourself." Jacob said, "Please, if you can find it in your heart to welcome me, accept these gifts. When I saw your face, it was as the face of God smiling on me. Accept the gifts I have brought for you. God has been good to me, and I have more than enough." Jacob urged the gifts on him, and Esau accepted. Then Esau said, "Let's start out on our way. I'll take the lead." But Jacob said, "My master can see that the children are frail, and the flocks and herds are nursing, making for slow going. If I pushed them too hard even for a day, I'd lose them all. So, master, you go on ahead of your servant, while I take it easy at the pace of my flocks and children. I'll catch up with you in Seir." Esau said, "Let me at least lend you some of my men." "There's no need," said Jacob. "Your generous welcome is all I need or want." So Esau set out that day and made his way back to Seir. And Jacob left for Succoth. He built a shelter for himself and sheds for his livestock. That's how the place came to be called Succoth, sheds. And that's how it happened that Jacob arrived all in one piece in Shechem, in the land of Canaan, all the way from Padan Aram. He camped near the city. He bought the land where he pitched his tent from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, paid 100 silver coins for it. Then he built an altar there and named it El Elohi Israel. Mighty is the God of Israel. And that is it for this Bible reading. As always, get in touch with God today, and I will see you again tomorrow. Bye.